The more we talk about ice hockey, the more I'm understanding that ice hockey players are just built differently.
Yeah. The mentality is different. Yeah. I still can't get the image of Mighty Ducks out of my head, though. I'll never forget that. Just the Mighty Ducks. That's me.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Quack, quack, quack. Flying V.
Yes. Mike asked, how much you know about ice hockey? Yeah, Flying V.
Flying V, yeah. Best tactic in the world. Welcome back to the Sports Dentistry podcast. A little bit later than planned, Umar. The trip to Washington and the conference with the ASD took it out of me a little bit and hasn't been able to schedule our weekly podcast as planned this time round, but we're back on track.
We're back on track. I think we've got to give ourselves credit, though. We've done 15 weeks on the bounce without fail. And I think, Washington was going to be a big moment in your life, I think, to know what the podcast is going to do going forward with that. So I think if we're only 1 week out of sync, then we'll take that. And you're back in one piece. And how was the ASD then?
Yeah, the ASD was a great conference. It started off, we've been talking a lot, and we have spoke about it as well at different times, at the idea of a world sports dentistry conference, trying to get everybody together from all the different countries and all the different associations. So on the way out to Washington, there's a world WhatsApp group, and I text into the group. It'd be really interesting to hear where everybody's from, and is there an association, a sports dentistry association with the country? And we got replies from everybody, and there's 35 countries with 16 established associations, which I thought was fantastic. So that's given us a real good idea of how quickly sports dentistry is growing, and there's a lot of people being represented as well at ASD in Washington. A lot of new associations, a little bit like ourselves at the UK Sports Dentistry Association, which shows you just how sports dentistry has really grown everywhere in recent years, which was really interesting. So that's how the week started, which really set off for a really good week.
Yeah, I thought it was a great initiative, actually, you putting that in and actually seeing what associations are out there, because it's so hard to kind of keep track of who's coming up and who the new ones are. And it's quite a good group to have where people can put their ideas and what they're doing, what their conferences are, or what sort of research they're doing. And it's a very easy to access. Almost everybody I know has WhatsApp, so I don't think there's any excuse not to be into that group if you are into sports dentistry. So I think that was a great thing that you started there. And I think that will help potentially, whenever the time comes, to hold some sort of world international sports dentistry conference. Like I say, whenever that time happens, we've got that really good group where majority of the associations are in there, and I'm sure that will continue to grow, and then we can make it into a super conference, which would be absolutely incredible, and bringing all corners of the world, although the world is round, yes, but all corners go in to kind of pull in the same direction, and that could really be a big springboard for what could potentially happen in years to come. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then the next thing that happened in Washington was my realization that there's mosquitoes alive and well in Washington City, DC. So it may...
You're an easy target. You're an easy target for mosquitoes.
In my naivety, I was thinking it's a city. Surely, the smoke usually keeps, the car fumes usually keep a lot of mosquitoes away from cities, especially built up areas. It'd be different if there's a lot of parks and stuff, but where I was staying in the city centre, it was all high-rise buildings. On the way to the hotel, high-rise buildings. So first few days, lovely weather. I was cycling around. I was using the local bicycle ride scheme. And the next day I started really scratching my ankles. And I got so many bites. So that was my next realization of Washington. The mosquitoes are alive and well in the city centre.
They've all got Irish blood running through them now. They'll be on top of the world at the minute. On top of the world at the minute. Well fed.
Yeah. So then that led into the conference, and lots of different highlights of the conference. And one of the biggest highlights was they had the fun run. Now we have spoke about possibly doing the fun run in Manchester on the morning of the conference. If anybody's in early, whether they're in maybe the Thursday evening, and they're about early on the Friday, maybe looking at doing like a fun run type walk. And with the pleasure of having Brett Kessler, who was the president of the American Dental Association, attend the conference this year. And he's obviously been to Washington quite a lot, Washington DC quite a lot, with his role as president of the ADA. So he led the fun run. It turned into more like a photo safari. It was brilliant. He took us down, a lovely view of the White House, and then on down to the Lincoln Memorial. And the Lincoln Memorial, if anybody hasn't been and they're thinking of going to Washington, so some of the statues and the buildings are unbelievable. The Lincoln Memorial is really impressive in person. Absolutely so impressive when you're actually there in person. And then just out the front of it was the actual step that Martin Luther King said, "I have a dream." So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And then the big mall. Now, the big mall, I'm sure, is famous for a lot of reasons, but the only thing that I can remember about the big mall is Forrest Gump. Do you remember the scene in Forrest Gump?
Yeah. Yes,
where
yeah, I do.
he's got Jetty, and strolls through the water. So that was the memory it brought back for me. But it was fantastic. That I thought that the fun run. It was meant to be 5K, but it wasn't really. We just ran, and then when we ran out of time, we came back. But we've seen so many sites, and then at the end of the conference, it was finished off with Emilio Canal, who had on the podcast before. He had organised a VIP trip to DC United, and it was amazing. So he had bus picked us up from the conference hotel. We went to the stadium, into three box suites done for the game, food, drink. Was able to take us down, do a lap of the stadium so he could show us all the different parts of the stadium. And they're saying that stadium, because of where it's built, it's quite high flood or something. And a lot of, like, usually in the stadiums where you get your snacks and your food and your beer and your refreshments, they're all mobile fixtures, so they can be removed quite quickly in case of it, which I always thought was quite interesting. So they're not actually bricks and mortar setups, so it's really easy then to try to control damage if they are unfortunate in some stages to have a bit of a flood, which was it was the first time I'd actually seen that as part of a stadium. So that was quite interesting. So it was a great conference itself, a lot of educational parts, a lot of good dentists, a lot of networking, a lot of good tradespeople. They were well supported with the trades and the sponsors as well. Some nice cool dental kit looked at, lots of variants of different types of mouth guards as well, which was great. So all in all, it was a good conference, and we had, as you know yourself, you're the first group of the MSc Sports Dentistry at UCL, but we had Chris Rapal, who would have been 2 years behind you. He presented his master's research in poster form as well at the conference, so that was nice to see as well. So all in all, it was a great week in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like every base was covered there, and they put on a good show. I think going forward, talking about doing a fun run in Manchester, I'm not sure doing a fun run around Manchester in September is that appealing, especially if rain is around. Rain is around, but it's something that the unique selling point of sports dentistry courses that we have is that we dovetail it with sporting event or a sporting event. Obviously, this year we're going to be doing it with the T20 with England against Africa, but we obviously need to start looking about next year and potentially even the year after that. So if there are people out there who have suggestions about what sort of sporting event we could dovetail it with at what time of year as well, if you can let us know, because we need to start looking at that certainly. And we obviously want to take it around the UK. We've done Scotland, so Edinburgh. We did England, Manchester. I think we should really try and, if we can, get out to either Ireland or to Wales and see what's on at that time. But I think we need to look at other associations and how they're running their conferences and what they're doing, and we can pick and choose what parts of that we like and what we can kind of make it unique to the UK. And I do think that dovetailing with a sporting event and making it half day at the moment is really beneficial, so people can fly in easily in the morning of, from anywhere in the UK and even Europe, to be honest with you, in the morning of, and do CPD, dinner, networking, and then a sporting event either that evening or the next day. I think that works really, really well. And if the fun run does happen and it's good and there's sites to see in Manchester, if we do end up doing it, then great. But then there'll be other places we can do it as well. So it's quite unique for them doing that, and having the president ADA there must be really good, and kind of going around and getting the history of somewhere like that. That must have been cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. And talking about our conference, Manchester and the T20 cricket, there's only a handful of full day conference tickets left. So if you're thinking of doing the full day conference with the dinner and the cricket, make sure to snap up your ticket, because once they go, we can't guarantee any more full day conference tickets.
Yeah, no, that's a good shout actually. Because I mean, we're only 2 months out now, so countdown's on, and I think as time goes on, we'll start to get more guests that will get more tailored towards the kind of UK side of things, and we'll try and kind of push that a little bit more. But we really want to get as many people as we can. You know, last year we had really good turnout, really good numbers. We're going to try and build on that for this year as well. And from what you were saying, the people that you saw out in Washington, that they've been listening to the podcast, and there's been a lot of good feedback with that, and about how we just kind of try and promote all different associations and all different walks of life, and how people have managed to get into sports dentistry, and listen about their journey and listen about their careers today, and how they've managed to get to where they are now. And I think the important thing is that we continue to give these people a voice and give these people an opportunity to get their stories across, because there's many people listening out there who will feed off that and will find it very informative. And we also look forward to meeting all these people. You know, it's good to get people coming up to you and saying, "Oh, I've listened to the podcast, I've heard your guests," and they're giving them their views on it too, which is great.
And then no better guest for this week's podcast, talking about conferences, is the new president of the Academy for Sports Dentistry. How do you introduce the president? Like, did they sign them in? It was not signed in. What's the term for
Sworn
it?
in. Sworn
in. That's it.
Yeah,
Sworn in last week there in Washington, who is Mike Salyzyn, because there's no way I'm pronouncing the second name. Actually, there was a very, very, very funny comment by Brian Blasco, who we have on the podcast, when he was introducing himself when he was the new president, because Brian was the last president, and he pronounced his name, and Brian goes, "It's the surname that wins at Scrabble." And I thought that was perfect, because it would be a surname.
Yeah.
The surname would definitely win at Scrabble.
I've got to say, the American presidents, their names are absolutely fantastic. Brian Blasco, Emilio Canal Jr., and then Mike Salyzyn. But I love the fact that you're the one who has to actually say the name and say the surname, because I'm not getting anywhere near it. That I can just sit and take the mick out of you. And obviously, you're good friends with Mike, so he's not going to take offense to that, I'm sure, when we do have a chat with him. But no, I think having somebody, and he's Canadian as well, obviously, right? So good to have a Canadian on and hear about his experiences, you know, and someone who's worked at the Winter Olympics, I believe, in 2010. So that'd be quite good. We've talked about the Summer Olympics. You've worked at London 2012. We've both done Commonwealth Games, you know, summer sports. So it'll be interesting to see how it fits in, how sports dentistry fits in with winter sports and alpine sports in particular.
Yeah, it's good. Now, Mike's a good guy. He's a great enthusiasm, sports dentistry. He also goes to the rink 3 times a week before he goes to dental practice. So him and his buddies meet up at the ice hockey rink and they play a game of ice hockey before going to dental practice.
Before work?
Before work, yeah, 3 times a week.
They play a game before work, not even after work?
No, before work.
But then I suppose, like, I go to the gym before work, and you go to the gym as well, right? Sometimes before work. But so yeah, I suppose it's the same amount of time. But I think with ice hockey, they have to put
it's not the same as playing a contact sport.
No, I know, but you're still an hour. Oh yeah, I suppose, like, okay, the rest. But what I'm saying is the exercise is an hour and a half or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I suppose you put on all that protective gear, and you have to get on the ice and cool down also. So fair play to Mike.
The more we talk about ice hockey, the more I'm understanding that ice hockey players are just built differently.
Yeah. The mentality is different. Yeah. I still can't get the image of Mighty Ducks out of my head, though. I'll never forget that. Just the Mighty Ducks. That's me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Quack, quack. Flying V.
Yes. Mike asked, how much you know about ice hockey? Yeah, Flying V.
Flying V, yeah. Best tactic in the world.
That's it.
So let's get Mike on, and I'm looking forward to this chat. Hey everyone, save the date. The UK Sports Dentistry Association's second conference is happening on Friday the 12th of September at the Voco Hotel in Manchester. And guess what? It's not just about teeth. We're combining cutting-edge sports dentistry talks with the thrill of live sport. Right after the conference, we're heading to Emirates Old Trafford for the England versus South Africa T20 International. Expect a day packed with expert speakers, athlete Q&A sessions, and plenty of time for networking with dentists, sports pros, and athletes alike. Whether you're in dentistry or passionate about sport, this is a day you won't want to miss. Tickets are live now at sportsdentistryuk.com. Grab yours and join us for an unforgettable day. It gives me great pleasure to welcome onto the podcast this week the new ASD president, Michael Salyzyn. How do you pronounce your second name?
So it's Salyzyn.
Salyzyn.
Yeah.
It's close enough. Close.
How do you say yours, Umer?
Yeah, well, you can say my name properly. So John's still struggling after almost 16, 17 episodes, but John's just continuing his inability to say our guests' names correctly. So he just keeps on outperforming himself.
Well, my secret weapon is my patients just say Dr. Mike, so they don't actually, try to pronounce the last name.
For our listeners out there that maybe haven't been to the ASD and haven't met yourself, Mike, let's give them a little bit of a background into where you're based, how you got into sports dentistry, and how you got into the ASD.
How long do we have? I think we all take a bit of a funny journey in this world, and we go down a road and all of a sudden it has a fork and it goes on the other side. And I kind of feel like a squirrel going around the whole profession of dentistry, which is wonderful. It keeps it fresh, keeps it exciting. This is my 38th year of practice, and I'm still reinventing myself. I find that every 7 or 8 years, it's time to reinvent, be it technology or be it CE or be it sports dentistry. So my journey on this road actually, interestingly enough, started in 2010. So about 15, 16 years ago with the Vancouver Olympics. So I was fortunate enough to be selected as one of the dentists for the Vancouver Olympics. And I spent 3.5 weeks in Whistler, BC in the Polyclinic, working directly with the Olympic athletes, the Olympic family, and staff. So we, as a host country, were responsible for all of those groups, the whole Olympic family, which is something most people don't know. So we provided free dental services and emergency trauma coverage to all those people from 7 a.m. till basically midnight, 7 days a week. It was two chairs in Whistler. There was another clinic in Vancouver. We looked after the alpine athletes, basically. And that got me interested in it. I realized it's MASH dentistry. We're in a tent in the middle of the woods with RCMP officers in big furry hats, patrolling the perimeter as you went outside to take a breath of fresh air, and you see this furry hat pop up out of the woods, except he was usually carrying an M16 with him. So it was an interesting experience. When I came back from that, I decided to get involved with the ASD. I found them online and said, wow, we can take what we learned from the Olympics, which was that the dental health of our Olympic athletes, regardless of country, is very precarious, very poor. And it has to do with very little funding. It has to do with the diets they have, the calories, the carbohydrates, not a lot of time spent on oral health. And I kind of made it my little mission to do what I can for our athlete and basically find out more about how to treat trauma and how to prevent trauma. So this is how the journey with the ASD kind of started, just a way to give back, because I think dentistry has been very, very good to me. I think we all look for a way to give back to our communities, give back to our athletes, give back to society as a whole. That's what makes us very unique in sports dentistry. We do it very altruistically.
Yes, that's quite interesting that your first sort of experience was the Vancouver. That was 2010, the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. A lot of us in the UK, our first sort of major dive into it was 2 years later at the London Olympics. How was it that you got involved? Because you're based at the other side of Canada than Vancouver. So
well, this is
how was it that you got involved?
That's a great question. And I contemplate that many times and just say it was just pure friggin' luck is what it was. I was working at the time as a volunteer with the Canadian Ski Patrol, much like You folks in the UK have BAPS, I believe, British Association of Ski Patrollers. I've worked closely with them over the years as well, which is a whole other side to me in terms of first aid and delivering first aid courses. So I applied to be a ski patroller at Vancouver. And then once they read down and saw all the qualifications, they called me one day and they said, listen, we really don't need you to take bodies off the hill. We need you to fix the bodies in the clinic. Would you mind being a dentist? Because that's what you're trained for. And I said, yeah, okay. I'm okay with that. And that's what kind of changed things. So it was my involvement in something totally different from dentistry volunteering that got me into this.
And the clinic itself, from there's maybe the Summer Olympics are a little bit more reported on. So I'll be interested just to hear a little bit more of the clinic itself, like how many dental chairs was it? What type of service were you providing? Was it like emergency care only, or was it general dentistry as well? How did that look throughout the games?
So it was pretty unique. The polyclinic was basically a mobile hospital. It was set up on the outskirts of Whistler, very restricted that you could get to. It was a tent city, massive carnival tents, if you could think of, filled with heat. And we've also had some semi-trailers that had fully equipped ORs in them, and they would back up to the tent, and they could do everything up to a certain level of neurosurgery in these fully equipped ORs that were accessible. We had our own MRI, and we had a CT scanner, we had ophthalmic services, physiotherapy services, massage therapy, just about anything you could think of. Our dental clinic consisted of 2 chairs. We had a panoramic in there. We had everything we needed to basically do any type of dentistry. And what we tended to do is just book assessments to start out with. And then once the word got out that, hey, it was free dentistry, because it's free, and it's as much as you bloody well can do in an hour, because all we could book was an hour. So it was, let's rock and roll. And you do quadrant dentistry, and basically most of these athletes needed it. I was surprised at the number of Canadian athletes. I worked on a lot of UK athletes. I got to hold a gold medal from one of your bobsledders that won gold, actually. Or actually, Luz, I think it was. Lovely lady, which was pretty cool to come into the clinic and say, I'll trade you. You can hold my medal and take a picture if I get a free toothbrush. Like, good trade. So, yeah, that's how it kind of worked. So we worked in 2 shifts. We worked from 7 to 3 and 2 to 11 or close. So we weren't allowed to leave until the last event finished. We basically took emergencies or trauma first. After that, it was anything else. Athletes had priority over Olympic family. Olympic family encompasses coaches, chef de mission, things like that. And then there was the workers. So workers had, dental emergencies, and we looked after them as well that were on site because they passed through security. Security was fun. You couldn't basically take anything in. All our dental supplies went through X-ray machines. We came on buses where basically they look underneath the buses. They look all through the buses. You still have to go through metal scanners, even with your security clearances. So it was really, really tight. There was no media allowed in the athletes' village. That's the cool thing. So you got to see the athletes as they really are, as opposed to what the media shows them. So there's lots of fun stories there that I really can't talk about.
No, is this the place to talk about it?
I don't think I want to. No.
And so how many clinicians were there then? How many of you were working in the polyclinic?
I would say in my recollection, we probably had 8 or 10 in Whistler. I don't know how many worked in Vancouver. It was a bigger facility in Vancouver. We had assistants, and we didn't have any hygienists, which was kind of odd. So I don't know the last time I picked up a scaler, but I did actually try to pick up a scaler in the polyclinic. Not much success to that. Just full disclosure, I am not a hygienist, and I do not have the clinical skills to do that properly. And I know that. It would have been nice if we did have some really well-trained hygienists, but it was mostly extractions. It was mostly fillings that we could do, as many as we could. some really interesting stories from all of that too. And I got to see certain countries that probably had greater dental needs than others. The Eastern European bloc was an interesting group at that time. The Chinese bloc was interesting too. So yeah, it was pretty amazing actually.
Just on that, do you think this is just from maybe my lack of knowledge of winter sports, but do you think it's maybe a challenge when it comes to World Health due to where they have to train? For example, like if it was an Irish or UK athlete, I'm sure when they're training for a competition like the Olympics, they'd probably have to go abroad and be abroad in training camps, and therefore maybe they don't have the same support that they would have if they were based locally.
I don't know. I mean, that's another great question because I'm not privy to, each country's training regime and what level of support they get. I can just speak from Canada, and, we have very little support from the federal government. Most of it is raised through fundraising. And, these athletes basically commit their whole life to achieving their goals and waving the flag. They're poor. They a lot of times they don't have the coverage. A lot of times they don't have the education from nutritionalists or from dentists to say, look, you're carb loading 5,000 calories today as a cross-country skier. How do you get 5,000 calories in you? I mean, it sounds like 3 trips to McDonald's to me, but that's probably not what's recommended. So they're carb loading and lots of high sugary drinks, and they don't brush their teeth between every jug of whatever protein enhanced mix that they use. So yeah, it's I think it's a challenge. I think it's something that we in sports dentistry can help with nutritionists for overall health. And it's an avenue that we need to explore more.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like Vancouver obviously opened your eyes and whetted your appetite for sports dentistry, and that took you into getting involved with the ASD. So can you just talk about your early years with ASD and what that was like and how you've seen that develop over time?
Well, I think the biggest thing with the ASD is here's this country bumpkin from the east coast of Canada that arrives on the shores of the United States of America. And I think of dentistry in the United States as much more organized than a lot of places in the world, Canada included. They seem to be more progressive in certain things and more progressive in their thinking. And I was accepted as an equal, which I thought was just mind-boggling. I've gone to other meetings and there's a bit of an air about, oh, I do this, I do this, I do this. But these guys and gals were very welcoming. And just, can you tell me about this? And they would share just about anything. And there was no egos in this whole thing. We're in it together. We all donate our time. If you're doing sports dentistry to make money, you're in the wrong part of dentistry. It's not there. You do this because you can afford to do sports dentistry, or you're just genuinely interested in helping people. So my early experience was basically teach me. I'm a sponge. I know nothing. I'm like SpongeBob. Teach me. and they did. And to this day, they still teach me. And I think John can say the same things. I came back home 3 days ago from our latest meeting in Washington, and I walked in my office today and I said, hey, look, here's a new matrix system that we need to try. And I ordered it. And, here's something else. I have a different way of making these mouth guards. I want to try this. So I have a local women's professional soccer team. And I rang them up today and I said, listen, I got some new mouth guards I just want to give you guys. Are you interested? And so medical's meeting tonight to see if they're interested. I'd like to try it. I want to see how they accept this compared to my hockey guys. It's a totally different beast. So yeah, it's all I got.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting because when you said that with your experience ASD, is I have the same experience. They're very welcoming, and there doesn't seem to be the egos that sometimes you would get at other organizations. And I'm not sure if maybe that's just a thing across all sports dentistry, because I see that in most sports dentistry groups is maybe just that type of person that's interested in sports dentistry that provides that. So that's quite interesting to hear you said. I'm actually also thinking about ordering that matrix system as well. So you mentioned.
So
What a,
it's $99 US, by the way, for 100 strips, just so you know.
what about, what type of mouth guard then are you going to try? Which one did you come away with
Well,
from the
I
conference?
modified our stuff before, but I'm going to use the Drufasoft Pro a bit more. I haven't really used that product as a second layer, and I think I'm going to focus more on just bulking up that anterior section between the two upper canines. So we speak dentistry like the UK, so from 1-3 to 2-3,
Yeah.
that
So
area.
are you speaking about just changing the material that you're using in your
Yeah,
layers of your mouth guard? Is that what you're thinking?
I think I'm gonna use the 3 millimeter Drufa Soft first, and then carve it all out. I want to feather it a bit more on the lingual between 3 and 3, and and then use the Drufa Soft Pro on top of that. It's a bit harder material. I'm looking more so for protection in this upper 6 anteriors, because 80% of the injuries in athletes occur in those upper 6 anteriors. So, let's play the odds on this one. If I can get you to wear the darn thing, and I can make it more comfortable, I'm going to protect 80%. I'm happy with 80% as opposed to 0% as they're wearing these, stupid aligners on the field and chewing on them.
Are you making your own mouth guards then, or are you outsourcing to a local
No,
lab?
I make my own. So my staff is well trained. My assistants are trained. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. I'm a big scanner guy. I've been with CERAC for probably 20 years. I was one of the original guys in your red cam, to blue cam, to omnicam, to prime scan, and now I've got iTero as well. And so we're scanning in iTero, sending it to a lab to be commercially printed, the models, just because I can't substantiate the ROI for printers at this point in time. It's a cost thing. I can get a model printed for $15 Canadian, which is like, what, £7? So I'd rather get it printed, send it to my office. We'll make it there because the Drufasoft and the machine is there. And, the assistants, they like it. They like to do it. And they have time, between patients, or a patient cancels. They feel more involved with the team, and we analyze it and say, let's try it. Now, the other thing too is I'm an old guy, but I still play ice hockey 3 times a week. So I test these things. I take them out on the ice and I put them in my mouth and I play for an hour and I come back and go, pure shite.
And do you test them by just standing there and getting people to hit pucks at you to see if...
Yes. Can't you tell? And see, that's the problem with all this concussion research. I've yet to find someone to volunteer for me to take a hockey stick and whack them over the head. I'm looking, though. I'm looking. If you're volunteering, John, I'm okay with that.
Well, it depends on many drinks I've had. You may just, if you get me at the right moment.
It's
But
possible.
then you'd have to factor that in as also a factor that the concussion might have been due down to higher risk from being intoxicated from alcohol than the actual hockey stick over the head.
Very possible. Yeah, we don't see that today in our leagues, thank God. But yeah, no, I take them out and I try them and I say, what's comfortable? What can I breathe in? What can I yell with? I'd encourage anyone listening to this, if they do play any type of sports, be it football or talking your football, ice hockey, lacrosse, field hockey, rugby, whatever, make it for yourself. Take it out, try it, see what's comfortable, see what you can breathe in. I've been playing with occlusion on mine for years because I like occlusion on my mouth guards. I find that I can bear down and I'm more comfortable than being unstable. So a lot of people don't put any occlusion in them. I do. I think it's great. Do I have the ideal 3 millimeter, interocclusal space? Probably not, but it's protective and it's comfortable and I have no problem wearing it. So play with it, try it, see what works.
It's interesting you said the ideal 3 millimeter space, because where's that definition coming from?
I think it's basically what's been taught over the last 40 years. I don't know the science behind that. And I just know for myself, for making splints, you're customizing these by every patient. You may start at 3 or 4 millimeters, but by the time you're getting them comfortable and a good occlusion, it could be a millimeter. Everyone's, different, right? So there's no hard and fast rule on this. I think we start at 3. I know the studies in terms of coverage for maximum protection, if you look at some of the papers written over the last 20 years, they kind of allude to this magic corridor in there, if you want to call it, somewhere between 2 to 3.5. I think a lot of it is what you can tolerate too. You have some players yelling at each other in a basketball court. I've made some mouth guards for some of our Canadian national team basketball players, and they can talk and they can yell. There's no problem. You can understand what they say. It's just you have to kind of customize the interclusal space. You have to customize the occlusion, and you have to customize the extensions of it in the posterior. It just takes some work.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So what local teams are you providing support for, and are you providing the support as field of play? So are you going to these games and matches and sitting courtside, pitch side?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing, I started out here in our city with one of the universities, and I was kind of sitting in the stands one day, and the guy got a 80-mile-an-hour puck to the face, and then had multiple facial fractures. And one of the trainers looked at me and said, "You want to look after this?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, fine. I'll help you out." And it just kind of morphed from there. So the ice hockey is a big one. I do some university football as well through the athletic department. I found women's field hockey being absolutely brutal. Those ladies can whack a stick, man. They need mouth guards. Rugby, the same thing. University rugby, the women are worse than the men, no question about it. So I did a lot of that. Now I've kind of backed away from the university. Some other things I worked with, we have a Canada Winter Games every year, so I was a chief dental officer for that. We had a North American Indigenous Games with about 5,500 athletes here last year, so I was the CDO for that as well, trying to organize dentists to volunteer to look after trauma, and that kept me busy. And most recently, yesterday, I just got a phone call from, we have a professional women's hockey league. It's called PWHL. It encompasses Canada and the United States. So they actually called and said, would you be the official dental consultants with the ASD as well to help us write the rule book and working with the chief medical officer through this league, through Canada and the US. So I'm like, yeah, sure, anything you need. So hopefully it will foster more of a relationship with the medical community. Our focus right now is to really get the physicians, the sports medicine physicians to embrace what we do. I had a lecture with a Canadian group, about 250 sports medicine physicians a month or two ago. And they were surprised that we were an expert in this, 30 centimeter area. It took 4 years to learn this 30 centimeter area. And they also didn't know the things that we do. I mean, we can suture vermilion borders. There's not too many GPs that can do that. We can put membranes in. We can do some fancy things. And once they start to realize the stuff that we can do, they start to embrace us a little bit more. It's not just making this mouth guard. It's, yeah, you can really help me on the field. You can get my $7 million a year athlete back in the game, and then I can fix you later. It's not the IADT gold standard on the field. It's MASH. When you're done, then we do the IADT gold standard. So it's a different way of thinking. And I think the medical community, I know at least here, we've had a lot of uptake, but it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of cold calling. It takes a lot of lecturing. It takes a lot of, hey, we got something else to offer as dentists. We are oral health experts in this little 30 centimeter area. And then they go, yeah, we learned nothing in medical school about that.
I'm glad you finished there, because you started off as though you were just started working with the university and started working, and then I'm just getting this call as though these things just arrived on your lap. But I'm glad you went into the fact how much the hard work has went in over the years to build up that reputation to where you're getting that call today to help them develop rules.
Yeah, we did a lot of things that didn't pay back, and we try things. It's really funny. I don't know very much about football. I don't know very much about rugby. Ice hockey is a very, very expensive sport. The ice is expensive to rent. The gear is expensive. Like a hockey stick for a 16-year-old could run north of $200 or $300, and they break those things every 2 weeks. So you could be spending $1,000 a month on hockey sticks alone if your child is, gifted or in a higher league. So, some of the things that didn't work out, I remember I went to a minor league tournament and I said, listen, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll make a mouth guard for you for $30, which is 15 pounds. We'll take the impression. I'll have it back tomorrow for you. And we had 450, I think it was, hockey players there, all the age of 15 to 16. And I said, this is great. It's a high level hockey. It was through many different areas of the country that were there. I did 7. They wouldn't spend the money on it. They said, no, I have a boil and bite from the sports store and I can get it cheaper. And Johnny's happy with it. So, we did a lot of things like that to try to get, but what it did do is the physicians that were there, the athletic trainers that were there, the physiotherapists that were there, they saw what we were trying to do. And they're the ones that actually paved the way for all the things that are happening now. So they said, call Mike. And
Call Mike.
That's how it kind of started. So you kind of got to start at the grassroots level of all this. You give a lot away. Things don't work out, but eventually someone will hear your message and they'll take it to heart and move from there. So that's my story. Sticking to it.
Yeah, you're right. You need physicians who align with how you're thinking, because we need the sports medics, physiotherapists, nutritionists to be able to value what we're doing and see the positive influence that we can have. You talked about, suturing vermilion borders and membranes. There's a high level of skill involved in that and high level of training needed to get to that level. The fact that you guys at the ASD run the course the day before the actual main course, which is the hands-on suturing and scanning, I think it's a great idea, because then it gives everybody a chance to be exposed to what you need to be able to do if you are going to be doing field of play related sport injuries and how you deal with that, because there's nothing worse than being pitchside and something happening and then you're stuck and you're frozen and the physicians are looking at you to be able to help them. But if you're confident enough to be able to do something because you've got the extra training in it, then they see that and they feed off that positive energy. And they be like, actually, this person is quite competent in what they're doing, and we want somebody like that or like them in our team.
That's correct. So, they need to know what we can do. And if you have, I think one of your previous podcasts that I listened to, it could be, she was just saying that, she had the orthopedic folks in the UK on her side, and they saw what she could do in terms of suturing, and it made the whole process a lot easier. And I have to kind of say, we mirror that. It's the exact same process. Once they see it once, I've had physicians say you can't suture tongues. And I'm like, no, we do that pretty routinely. Here's how we do this. And then they go, wow, we were taught we can't really do that. Go home and let it heal. And you look like a reptile when it's all done. So it's education. It's education of the medical community. It's education of the teams. Do you have athletic trainers in the UK? Is that what they're called?
No, we would call them physiotherapists.
Okay, so we have physiotherapists as well. The ATs and the teams here basically run the medical side of it apart from the medical physicians. So the physicians are part of it, but the ATs look after all the needs of the players on the semi-pro and pro level. And then they'll call in the specialists or the special areas to look after things. So they're the ones that we kind of focus on. We focus on the ATs, we focus on the physicians.
So in the UK, I think now the rules are starting to become like medical leads or performance leads and stuff, and a lot of them will be physiotherapists that take up them rules, is my understanding, which is maybe what's just similar then to your AT role that you have.
I think they have a bit more training in probably massage, not only the physio. Their first aid training is usually quite a bit more. I'll put a selfless plug into, if you want to have the best first aid training in the UK, go take it from BAPS, British Association of Ski Patrollers. I'm serious. You'll learn emergency first aid that you can use on the pitch, you can use in the woods. You can learn how to splint. You can learn how to keep airways open. These folks have a great course, and I know they go around through the UK because I know people who do it and teach this. But it's a wonderful first aid course. I do the similar one in Canada every year. My recertification for the Canadian Ski Patrol is 16 hours every year. The original course is 60 hours for first aid. And it's the best thing I can use in my dental office.
Yeah, that's good. That's intense. And Umar was saying that your course that you do for the rugby, more it's probably something similar, is it?
Yeah, so it's very similar to that, and it's kind of sanctioned by World Rugby. So it's very similar to what we can do, kind of field of play and open area. Keep open areas or medical emergencies, sort of stuff that you're doing. It's it's maybe so much kind of things in the woods, and which of if you're just a normal person who likes to go and do normal activities, it's obviously beneficial. But they can all the basics are normally the same, aren't they, in terms of what you're trying to do, and it's all about trying to keep somebody alive if there's a cardiac arrest, or if somebody is injured, then how can you help them get to safety? So it's all very, very simple. It's all intermingled. So, I mean, that kind of leads us on to quite nicely with you guys having just finished off the American conference in Washington there. Can you just kind of let the listeners know who couldn't make it? Obviously, I couldn't make it, but it was, from the photos and videos that were being sent, it looked like there was quite a good crowd there, and what you guys kind of covered.
Yeah, we had a really nice conference this year. It was a whole lot of fun. We met a lot of new friends from all over the world. We had a nice contingent from India with the Indian Dental Association that arrived. We had folks that actually came from Israel as well. They were stuck in Israel, and then they came the last day, which was a big surprise. We did not realize that. We've had some from Puerto Rico and South America as well. So it was, a really international conference. It was a lot of, I like in sports dentistry, and some of the ways we kind of look at it is we look at it as a circle. We look at protection, we look at trauma treatment, we look at definitive treatment, and now we're looking at neuromuscular things. We're looking at the sensors, we're looking at feedback loops, and we're looking to make, performance to basically reach your performance potential. So there's more to sports dentistry than just IADT gold standard. That's only a small part of this. So I think the conference really showed that, and it shows that in the future, this is where we're headed. We're headed for a more rounded symposium, and not just focusing on, here's how you build up when someone breaks a tooth. So that was probably the big takeaways from this whole conference. So it was one of the better ones in terms of that. It wasn't singularly focused. It was more focused on many different aspects of dentistry. And we need lots more research in a lot of these areas. We need lots more involvement in all of these areas. But I think globally, this is the future. And by working with different countries and different associations, I think we can achieve that and elevate it across the whole spectrum in the world. So it's really exciting. I kept saying every day to John, so how many countries, John? How many organizations do we have? And I felt like it was the Russian judge holding up the thing 7.2, 7.8. So in my president's address at the end, I'm like, John, how many do we have right now? So, that WhatsApp group is just fascinating. I love reading that. I don't chime in very often. I'm more intent on just soaking it in and seeing what's going on in the world. And I think that's just, fabulous looking at that. So yeah, that's exciting on that end. So the research side, just the overall look at sports dentistry, where we're headed. We're excited about San Diego next year from June 11th to the 13th. It's probably one of the most interesting places in the United States to go. It's very close to Mexico. So that's where our next conference will be. It'll be there. And then we're not sure the year after that. We thought about Cancun, but we have some logistical issues there with sponsors. So, regardless, you have to look at the money. It's like running our dental offices. You got to look at the money. So we had 19 sponsors for this conference, and the sponsors do help quite a bit. They have booths set up. So you can go visit them. You can find out what's going on with the sponsors. And they're a big part of making this a success every year. It really is. It's our single biggest fundraiser for the ASD, and it's going to continue to grow as time goes on.
Yeah, it was really interesting conference. And as you said, there's so many people from all over. I think there was people from South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Africa. I think almost every continent was represented by someone that was there. So that was really, really good. And there was a really interesting, was one of my big takeaways was there was a really nice roundtable discussion with all the dentists that look after the professional teams in Washington. So we had the dentist looked after the American football team, the dentist looked after the soccer team, the ladies soccer team, the ice hockey team, the basketball team, and the baseball team. And it was really interesting. There are different challenges that they had. What really stuck out was when it came to the baseball guy, and he talked about one of his biggest challenges was tobacco use, and how it was that big of a use that they've had to come in and try to prevent the use with new players coming into the league, and how he's used biopsies to try to scare the players into stopping the use of tobacco because there was that many white lesions that he was noticing in these young athletes from tobacco use, which was a completely different challenge from all the other different sports. And that's something that was really interesting. I thought that was a fantastic session that was held at the conference. Where do you see the future of AASD, Mike? So you're now the new president. We had Brian on, who was last year's president, earlier on in the podcast. How does that work? So are you in the role for the next year, 2 years, and what do you hope to achieve in that time?
So we have a very robust training program for this role. So what we try to do is we usually put someone on the board of directors for 3 years, a 3-year term, to understand the challenges, the successes, and the vision in terms of strategic planning of the organization. Strategic planning is very important, that we can sit there and have concrete goals that we can reach. So after 3 years, if you're fortunate enough or unfortunate enough, you become president-elect. So you still continue on to learn the role, and basically you're CC'd in every bit of email that goes across at that level with the president and the past president and anything that's going on. So when you assume the role of president the next year, you hit the ground running. So you've had 4 years of training. And so this will really be my 5th year. And then next year, when I become a past president, it'll be my 6th year. So it's a 6-year commitment when you really think about it. So you're well versed in what's going on across the entire organization. What we're trying to do now and the future of the ASD is our strategic plan is threefold. The first one is membership. We want to increase our membership to become more financially viable. The second one is capitalization, which basically means that we're trying to partner with different organizations, and we have some very positive things to do with that. We have the American Dental Association that we're developing an MOU with right now, and they actively want to partner with us. That represents 161,000 dentists in the United States. That's massive. So we do the same in Canada. We're speaking at the Canadian Dental Association annual conference in the end of July. We have 21,000 dentists. So we've been invited to speak for 3 hours at that on sports dentistry. So we're making inroads to these national organizations. We've been on podcasts with the Canadian Dental Association. We've written articles in the regular journals. So we're starting to get people interested to join the organization and find out more. So organized dentistry is a good way to go about growing it. And the capitalization, we're working on some things with corporate sponsors. I can't really say who, but it's the biggest dental distributor company in North America. And then thirdly, our vision is branding. So we're working on the ASD brand. The brand is very important. One of the things we want to accentuate and kind of work on is the sports dentistry course that we have. It's very unique in the world. It's a great course as it stands, but it could be better because we always have to build a better mousetrap. That's what we are as dentists. We're never, ever happy with what we have. We want more. So, we're looking at expanding that into perhaps, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Can we do some of this online remotely? Can we do some of it in person? And we have a neuromuscular side we're going to look at. We look at recertification as well as a separate entity. And we need something like an instructor certification program. Just because you take the course doesn't mean you can teach the course. So, there's whole multi-level of this. If you want to be recognized worldwide of having a great product, then we have to invest the time and the money to do it correctly. So the branding is very important to us as well. So there are 3 major goals right now: membership, capitalization, and branding.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially because the ASD has been around for so long. So they're probably the longest organization since 1983. And as you mentioned before, there's now so many organizations popping up and so many countries being represented that it's great. And we know myself and Umar has been involved with the launch of the UK Sports Dentistry Association, is less than a year old at this stage. And it's easy to get the momentum early, but we're seeing even the challenges that the ASD have being 40 years old.
Yeah.
So like it's really interesting, and hopefully the associations that are popping up everywhere are able to build on that initial momentum they're getting and being able to become sustainable as well. So it's really interesting, them areas that you have pointed out that are still challenges to the ASD who's 40 plus years old. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think the big key is to, if you're trying to start one of these societies in your home country, see if you can get the local dental association or local dentist to buy into this to help you promote it, and the national organization as well. That's important. This is where you call your favors in. This is where you call your classmates who are working in organized dentistry in and say, can you help me with this and get our message across?
Yeah, definitely. And I think kind of going forward, as these associations start to pop up, and even today, we've invited the Dutch have now obviously started their own association as well. And every week you'll be having to add your numbers onto, this week we've got 30, then it'll be 31, 32 number of associations. And I think we need to feed off each other's successes, but also each other's kind of failures or stumbling blocks, because it's very, very similar. A lot of the things that you've said is what other guests have said in terms of the challenges that they've been facing. So it's all very, very similar across the board. And because ASD has been doing it for such a long period of time, John and I have touched on it before, that why isn't the ASD, for example, who's been in the game for so long, not already well established? But then yourself and Byron and Emilio have all said the challenges that you have faced. So to overcome these challenges, how do you see things developing over the next 5 to 10 years? You obviously talked about the three main areas that you're focusing on. What could we do as compatriots in the UK or in other parts of the world that can help each other, help promote sports dentistry into kind of mainstream up with sports medics, physios, athlete trainers, etc., etc.?
I don't have a magic answer to that. It's a great question. I think we just keep pounding the pavement and using the contacts that we have. We're all connected in some way in dentistry. Dentistry, it is not that big in each country. It is and it isn't. People. Everyone knows people. And it's using those contacts and say, listen, can I make a presentation to this? Can I make a presentation to that? That's the dentistry side to grow your membership. The second thing is use your medical contacts, use your PT contacts, your physiotherapists, use whatever to say, listen, can I talk to the physiotherapist when they have their annual meeting? I can give you a little thing about, dentistry on the field, emergency dentistry. Use the IADT app. I think you guys have access to that as well, that Tooth SOS.
Yeah.
And that's what I always start my lecture and I say, listen, if you stay to the end of the lecture, I have a free gift for you. And everyone wants a free gift. Everybody. So they all stay. And then I put the QR codes up and I say, here you go. Here's your free gift. You didn't have to listen to me, but everything that I talked about on the field is on those 2 QR codes. And you'd be surprised at the number of physiotherapists and anyone that works with a team says, oh my gosh, I wish I knew this. This is just what I need when I have an athlete. And I can go through the checklist and pull up my phone and go, yeah, okay, I'm going to reposition that. I'm going to get a bite on a piece of gauze and I'm going to call Mike or whoever, right? So that's a wonderful way to get this message out. And I think if we start doing that in all our countries, it will collectively expose everyone to this, and our dentists will be aware of it, and our medical side will be aware of it, and we'll get more acceptance. This is a long slog, folks. This is not a year. This is a 5-year or 10-year slog. It really is. But the good news is we've come a long way in the last 3 years, more so than I ever expected. It's really exciting in our end with the American Dental Association, Canadian Dental Association. We have the Canadian Association of Sports and Exercise Medicine on board. it's just starting to explode.
Yeah, that's a really good insight. It's about all us trying to push together, and as you mentioned before, using our contacts, using the sports medics, using the physiotherapists, the athletic trainers, really exposing to them what we can supply them and support them with. Regarding your own field of play stuff, so we've seen recently some of the work that you've got yourself involved in, and that's the trauma pitch side or rink side at the ice hockey. It's quite severe, some of the trauma. How have you been able? The one recently that I think we were using it to promote the ASD conference, where it was with the tongue was being lacerated, and there was maybe a bit of alveolar bone fracture as well. Like how do you be able then to find yourself getting that player back onto the rink, or is it how's that process?
Yeah, I think we go through a triage thing on the ice and or in the locker room, and they bring them down below, where basically we say, okay, what's the likelihood, first of all, of any type of maxillofacial fracture? That's the first thing we have to rule out. Do we have airway issues? Do we have medical issues here first? So, we kind of look at that. If there's any suspicion at all, you're out of the game. You're off for CBCT to figure out whether or not that's true. After that, it's basically most things we can freeze them up and stabilize them. If it's an important game, they're getting paid a lot of money, or it's a very important game. Like I've done some stuff with World Juniors. So I remember Canada was playing Russia, and the player had to get back in the game in the middle of the match, and he busted a lower, like it was a 4-1 right off at the gingiva, and it was vital, and basically froze him up, took a broach to the thing, put a little bit of Cavit in the top of it, and sent him back on the ice, and he assisted in the winning goal against Russia back in, it was 2011 or 2012. So, these are just seat of the pants things that you do to get him back into the game, and then you fix him later. Actually, he never came back. He went downtown to party afterwards, and I found out he was halfway across the country 2 days later. He was fine. He said it was fine. So I think the beer numbed him.
Yeah, that is difficult sometimes, is getting the follow up, isn't it, with some of these players, especially if they're not players that are part of your clinic or your office already.
Yeah, and the alpine sports, believe it or not, are difficult. The alpine sports have a lot of injuries. Most of our downhill athletes or mogul athletes, they wear mouth guards. If you look very closely at the Winter Olympics, the amount of G forces that they're carrying and the compression forces, it's pretty brutal. I've had one snowboarder that was doing a half pipe in one of these extreme things, and he brought his knees up and hit his lower chin, and it's called knuckling. You're doing a 360 inverted move, and when he landed, he knuckled, and he actually vertically fractured. I've never seen it before in my career. Vertically fractured 1-4, 2-4. I think it was both bicuspids, and there were 2 fragments. He had no previous dental disease, and it was just the force of banging on this stupid thing. I'm like, my God, like, how did you split those teeth? But that's the force of compression, right? Mm-hmm. That happens. So these athletes, we have one member, Curtis, out in Alberta, Canada, and he makes presentations to the Canadian Alpine team and helps with them and makes mouth guards for them as well. And most of those Alpine athletes do wear them. They really do. It's a dangerous sport. You can kill yourself. That's the fun thing about the Winter Olympics. You can kill yourself in just about any sport in the Winter Olympics. In the Summer Olympics, it's hard to kill yourself. It's a lot harder. Okay? The speed you're at. I don't see, summer luge. It just doesn't exist.
Although there was Eddie the Eel. Was it Eddie the Eagle, the boy that couldn't really swim?
He's a Canadian fixture. We've basically adopted Eddie the Eagle here in Canada.
Yeah, very good. Well, I think we've took up quite a lot of your time, Mike. Thanks very much for jumping onto the call, especially so shortly after the ASD. I don't know about you, but I'm still a wee bit jet lagged, even though you're maybe only 1 hour difference. But it does take it out of you.
Well, I will tell you, John, that I really enjoyed the 4 days with you. I've learned a lot about Ireland. I've learned a lot about. I've learned a lot of things I shouldn't know. I don't think I'll ever walk through a crowd again and look at the lads that are walking next to me and not think about, can I take you or not? That was the biggest takeaway of this. So I was kind of gobsmacked at that one. I'm like, wow, wow. So John was our hooligan on the bus to Major League Soccer. By the way, he did a great job, and I'm sure if he had long pants on, he would have stuffed more beer in the shorts, because he said that I cannot leave free beer. They have to come with me.
Yeah,
Only
he's
made sense.
So they're the two big takeaways that I have of that. So yeah, can I take you, and free beer.
he's quite well known
Yeah.
for he's quite well known for taking freebies. To be fair,
Yeah, no, that was a great, it was a great way to finish the conference. The conference was finished with Emilio Canal, who we've had on the show, who's the sports dentist for DC United, was able to organize a VIP experience where he had 3 box suites organized with free food and free drinks as part of the ticket, and a bus from the conference hotel to the match, a stadium tour while we were there, and watched the match, and then the bus back. And that's what we've been trying to do in the UK. I think that's what really sets us different to other dentistry conferences is the sport aspect. And I thought that was an absolutely fantastic way to finish the conference last weekend.
Yeah, it was great. It was probably one of the highlights actually of the conference in terms of social, and it gave you a good time to sit and talk to other people from all across North America and the world just about their experiences, and that was the most valuable part of it all. You know, we're all together. We're all together in this. There's no big heads. And I will say one little thing before we end this. One of the neatest things that I found about it is I've approached speakers and I've said to them, you know, like Dr. Padilla out of UCLA Lakers. And I said, you know, I'd like to have a copy of your slides. I'm doing a lecture here. He said, as long as you don't, you know, put anyone here that you can identify, here's a copy. So, you know, it's wonderful that we share these resources, the technical side of it all. It's not proprietary. It's we want to teach, we want to learn, we want to. So why create the whole slide deck? I'll give them credit for it, but boy, it's nice to be able to share these things. It saves a lot of time.
yeah, definitely. And you obviously touched on next year's conference being in San Diego. Is there any more that you can elaborate on that? You said it was June 11th to the 13th.
11th to the 13th, we intend to have another team dentist course. It'll probably be the one on the 11th. 12th and the 13th will be our normal lectures. I think they're looking at trying to shorten the days a bit, John, so you have more time to go out and harass the people on the beat in San Diego, because we've heard you need beach time because you need to get rid of that pasty.
Takes it. I'm starting from a lower. I'm so white, you know, it takes me a wee bit longer to catch up. So it's just getting that them exposure, just getting exposure hours in.
Well, you'll be fine in San Diego. It'll be great. I think we're one of those little. Yeah, we'll put a hat on you. We'll put a big hat on you. A big hat.
Yeah. I'm hoping to get out there next year. I'm hoping to get to San Diego, and we and John talked about potentially tying it in with a bit of the Soccer World Cup as well, and taking the podcast out there and just help spread the word. So I'm really looking forward to that. And it's, you know, time flies. So this time next year, we'll maybe be doing this in person.
I hope so. We had a lovely thing happen to us at the conference, and that I think it was Dortmund, the team from Germany, reached out to Henry Schein in Germany and said, we need coverage for our FIFA players here in the United States. Do you have anyone that can do it? And we have a relationship with that company. And they contacted ASD and said, can you provide sports dentists, please, for Dortmund? And we did. And they won their first match, and they moved on to their second one in a different city. And we provide dentists in that city for it as well. So we're starting to see some uptake with FIFA, which is wonderful. Now it's at a club level right now, but we'd like to work on and see more of that. FIFA right now in the World Cup that they're having in Canada and the United States says that they don't get any injuries. So we'd like to prove them wrong. So if any folks out there listening have great data about injuries in football, oh boy, do we need that, and send it to FIFA.
Yeah, it's so important. And I had numerous conversations with dentists at the conference to support teams that have all examples of where they've made an impact, but we just haven't documented it, and we haven't brought it all together and been able to present it to the right people. at the likes of FIFA to get that buy-in for the need for that sports dentist, for that support.
And that's going to be our challenge moving forward. So, I encourage folks to, if you have an opportunity to do any type of surveying or research in terms of even just frequencies of injuries and severity of injuries when you're athletes, it's something to document and start to pool and maybe we can get a database on this. I think it would be absolutely fantastic. So there's all kinds of things we can think about and collaboratively throughout all our countries.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, thanks very much, Mike. I'm going to let you go back. You're still a good bit of the afternoon to go over there.
Nah, it's 6 o'clock. I'm only 4 hours from you, right? I'm pretty good. And like I said, it's a quick little flight for us from the East Coast to Canada. It's really about a 5-hour flight, and I'm sitting in a pub in Dublin. So that's not bad. That's not bad.
It's not far away.
No.
And we're thinking about maybe if you can get yourself over in more of the Rose discussions, that if Mike is able to get himself over to Manchester, we might have to venture down to Wrexham so he can see the Wrexham pub.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
got famous
Ryan Reynolds is a Canadian.
That's true. Yeah, no, definitely. We'd love to have you over, Mike. And we've got some, a lot more people starting to pick up and more sales because we're only a couple of months out now, right? So July, August, September. So we're hoping to kind of help grow the game and help grow sports dentistry. And we've got the backing of people like yourself and who help spread the word in America and Canada. And it's really good. I think if we can feed off each other and just see where it takes us.
That sounds great. I'm going to run out of power here shortly for some stupid reason, so I'm going to probably have to cut this a little bit short, guys. I could talk all.
No, that's all good. Thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate it.
Mike.
All right.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike.
Been a pleasure, and I hope you can make it to San Diego on June 11th to the 13th, 2026. We'd love to have everybody there.
Definitely.
It's a great city. Great. Thanks very much. Always great to chat, Mike. We'll chat soon.
Have a great night, guys.
We are delighted to have Ionate as a sponsor for the Sports Dentistry podcast. Are you looking for a water bottle that's built to keep up with your active lifestyle? Look no further than Ionate, the totally leak-proof water bottles with triple lock technology to prevent spills no matter where you're headed. With a simple one-touch opening mechanism, you can sip on the go without hassle. Plus, Ionate's sleek, modern designs are not only functional but can be personalized just for you. Made from high-quality steel, these bottles are easy to clean and best of all, they're sustainable. From 320ml to 1200ml, Ionate has the perfect size for you, whether you're just out for a jog or going on a long hike. And it doesn't stop at water bottles. Ionate also has travel mugs and flasks to keep your drinks just right wherever you are. Ionate is the official water bottle supplier to the British and Irish Lions on their tour to Australia this summer, and are the official water bottle supplier to the NFL, so you know you're getting the best. I have been using their bottles for a long time now and cannot recommend them highly enough. So head over to www.ionate.co.uk to get your hands on the best bottles in the business, bar none. Now back to the pod.
So that was a great chat with Mike. Loved the enthusiasm. Loved how it was just by chance that he ended up working as a dentist, the Vancouver 2010 Winter Olympics. And he actually he played for a different role. And that's a question that a lot of people ask me is, how do you get into these major competitions, the likes of the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games? And it's the same process as any volunteer that's there. So it doesn't matter what your role is. The whole process is the same, and you have to go through that process, and they'll start allocating you based on your skill set. And Mike was the perfect example of that, where he applied for a different role, but when they actually seen his skill set, they're saying, well, it'd be really useful if he could help us out with the dental facilities for the games.
Yeah, and I think if you're applying for roles within Commonwealth Games and Olympic Games, it's better to have more strings to your bow, and there's other ways to get in. I think we were all quite disappointed not to get involved with Paris Olympics last year, and for many of us who've done further training and then masters and worked at various worldwide events in the past, not actually being able to even get in and do the polyclinic or any field of plays was really disappointing. But that's not to deter what's happening in the future when there's obviously the Glasgow Commonwealth Games next year. and then there's the LA Olympics, and you've got the Olympics in Brisbane, Gold Coast in 5 years' time, and all the other sort of world events that are coming up. You have to throw your hat in the ring. If you don't throw your hat in the ring, you're never gonna get in. But you need to be able to stand out, and I think you need to be able to. Yes, dentistry is something that you can stand up with, but if there's something else that you can do, like an advanced pre-hospital care course. We talked about scrum caps a lot of times, and something to the equivalent of that, and also what Mike talked about through the Alpine. Was it you said it was the BAPS, wasn't it? And how they do the kind of basically the same pre-hospital care stuff, and how you're managing to get people down from the hills or in the woods and stuff like that. So I think that's something that definitely we should look at a little bit more. And then once they kind of see what your credentials are, then they might actually, we need this dentist to do this polyclinic, or we need this dentist to do this field of play. And again, he said it was by luck, and that kind of opened his doors, wasn't it? And he said it was after that he then found the ASD, and he got involved with the ASD, and everything kind of snowballed for him after that. It was really good to hear how he's managed to amalgamate his love of ice hockey with sports dentistry, and a lot of work that he does with trauma, and how he gets everybody to, if they ever need anything, they just call Mike.
Just call Mike. And it's great the way he explained about how he did so many things that didn't pay off. And like both myself and yourself, we'll have plenty of examples of that. So it's in this world now where on social media and you only see the great and the good that everybody's doing. You don't realize all the amount of work that goes on in the background, and you get a lot of questions sometimes, how to get involved in these teams or how to get involved in that. You just got to keep pounding and keep pushing and keep trying to promote sports dentistry and promote the benefits of it, and things will open up and doors will open up, just like they have for Mike. Where now great opportunities have come onto his lap this week, days after he's been in as the president of the ASD. So it wasn't even being the president of the ASD got him these opportunities. These are all opportunities that have been built over many years of him pushing sports dentistry in his area.
The Sports Dentistry podcast is a prime example of that. One little comment that you made in the morning after the night before at the Edinburgh conference last year kind of stuck with me, and I was thinking, well, why not though? Like, why can't we do it? A lot of people are doing podcasts and lots of different things, and with Wi-Fi now that you have Starlink, yes, you've got a good Wi-Fi connection, and you've got good
I would just like to say, I don't want to be associated with Elon Musk at the moment, so just don't let that lad on. I've got Starlink. I might become targeted.
I'm just glad that you're able to actually get on and chat without having to drive 3.5 hours to your practice with the busker outside, and you're saying to me, I'm not sure if I can record because they're not setting up and they're going to be extremely loud. So for me, that's a win-win situation. but like I said, that comment that you made, and I didn't let it go, and then obviously we had a chat about it again. You're like, oh, I'm not really sure, but nobody's doing it, man. Nobody's doing it. And look at I know it's taken us a lot of effort to kind of get to where we're at now, but look at the people that we've had between us just now, the people that we've had on. You're talking about presidents of associations, people who've been in the game for 20 years, people who have been on Six Lines tours, people who specialize in TMJ, people who are international athletes. Mate, it's incredible, and I do feel very lucky. I feel very privileged to be in a position where we're able to talk about something that we love, and dentistry is our careers, but sports our love, and the fact that we can actually just sit and chew the fat, talk about it, just me and you, it's brilliant, and really excited with where it's going to take us going forward. And if it wasn't for this podcast, I wouldn't have then been able to speak to guys like Mike or Emilio or Byron, and actually now kind of call them friends, even through having a podcast. If I have anything to ask, or if I'm going to visit there, I can drop them a message. And they've been very kind to kind of have open arms, and we'll open our arms for them to come over as well. Not just the Americans, but also Rena and Clara and everybody else who we chatted to as well. So I think we're in a very unique position, and luck is something we've talked about a lot on the podcast when it comes to getting involved with sports teams. But I think I'm a firm believer that you have to also make your luck and put yourself in a position where luck will also find you.
Yeah, and now I'm not sure if your excitement about the podcast is due to the fact that before we jumped on, we were talking about getting some Sports Dentistry podcast merch so we could wear, because I know you're into your fashion, and you're that would excite you to get into a bit of designer gear with the Sports Dentistry podcast on it.
I just need to figure out how that would fit in well with my tartan trousers or my tartan
Yeah,
hood or my kilt. I'll always wear something. I'll always wear something tartan to represent my Scottish background. And maybe we need to get you something Celtic so you can wear something Celtic along with it, and we can represent from that side of things. But we'll certainly be looking at some merchandise. We'll be looking at doing visuals, visual recordings, and trying to expand our game because we need to try and continue to make that better. But yeah, like you said, we'll definitely have some merchandise available on show for the UK Sports Dentistry Conference in September.
That's hopefully. So if anybody has any good tips, what type of merch that we want to see Umar in, then let us know.
Remember, this is a family show. This is a family show.
And anybody, any tips on how we can improve the podcast? Like as we said at the very first episode, like this is all brand new to us. So if there's anything that you feel can be improved, please reach out. We'll be more than gladly to take it on, or any guests you want to see or anything like that. That'll be brilliant. I'll support.
Yeah, I also think it's important that people continue to comment and send messages, and also leave reviews, and try and repost and hashtag and tag their friends in comments, and so they can see also that's the only way it's going to really grow. It's all very well we can sit here and do it on our own platforms, but we need the people listening who, if they find it interesting, to tag people who they'll then find interested and reshare it onto their platforms. But also, we want to hear if there's things we can improve on, if there's things that they want us to chat about, if there's things that they think that's something important that we're not touching on, or if they want to correct us for something. Look, we're only human. We will make mistakes. Whatever we talk about, sometimes we'll say the right things, sometimes we'll say the wrong things, but we need to thick skin to be like, okay, if you're wanting to tell us something and you want to make the show better, then that's fantastic. So we are really open to hearing everybody's ideas. But I think the important that we talked about, we obviously went through the numbers with the listeners that we've been having. And yes, it's continues to grow. I think we're almost hitting more than 30 countries now. Last time it was, or a couple of episodes ago, it was 26. Now we're at 31 31 different countries listening. Again, we're almost at 2,000 listens. And that's just from, again, me and you just sitting, having a chat, having a blether with some really interesting people. So, but we do need people to help build a profile, help spread the word. And if they have got guests that they want us to chat to, and there's questions to what we want us to ask or answer, then we can do the best that we can.
And reach out to the guests, because they've been so generous with their time coming on and having a conversation. So reach out to the guests that we've had on, say thanks very much for the podcast, really enjoyed it, connect with the guests. And it's really just about building this big sports dentistry community. And as we mentioned at the start, hopefully sometime in the future we'll be able to have a world sports dentistry conference where everybody comes together. And we see this podcast as a way of trying to bring everybody together. I know we're based in the UK, so a lot of the stuff was coming from the UK based, but we're really trying to do an international feel to this podcast, and really hopefully be a platform to help bring everybody that's got an interest in sports dentistry worldwide together.
100%, 100%. And I know that if we do have a worldwide sports dentistry conference, we'll definitely have a stand for a live pod then. That is for sure. That is for absolute sure.
Definitely.
But yeah, that'll attract so many different people. I don't think it'll just attract sports dentists. I reckon it will attract sports medics and physios and other healthcare professionals who are interested in the field, especially if you can make it a really interesting conference and lots of hot topics of what that would be. But we need to build towards that. I think we are in a position where, we've got well-established associations like the ASD, the A4SD. We're going to be cutting the Brazilians, the India as well, and we need to try and really focus our energy and attention on trying to put all the pieces of the jigsaw together. So when we do finally get to a position where we all come together, we can make it something really, really special.
Yeah. So that was not a good episode. Umar and I, we've missed a week due to my vacation in Washington. We're under a wee bit of pressure this week too, because I'm going to be in Marbella for a stag. So we're going to have to be a little bit better organised to make sure that we don't fall behind again next week.
I think you being in the sunshine and then me being down in Lords in London is going to be a real struggle, and I don't think we should have any plan to do any podcast at that time. So yeah, we are under pressure, but this is what it's all about, man. We put pressure on ourselves to strive and be better, and we just got to make it work.
Pressure produces diamonds, isn't that what they say?
Yeah. Pressure. What's pressure? What is pressure? We're going to have to get a pressure quote. I'm going to have to try and start off the next episode with some sort of pressure quote, because that's what.
Pressures for tires. That's one was not good.
That's terrible. But yeah, I'll try and get a good one for the next one. But yeah, so thanks very much for that conversation, John. That was fantastic. Shout out to Mike. Thank you again.
Yeah.
We hope that your next year is filled with lots of promise, lots of enjoyment, and we look forward to San Diego. San Diego, that is something that we will definitely have to get booked in at the calendar.
Yeah, definitely. It works out quite well where it's the 9th to the 11th. So this year, it's the way the season goes, and I think it's to facilitate some of the dentists that work with teams. But the greatest thing that I like, one of the greatest things I like when I do visit America is just the amount of sports that is on, especially if it's in season. So that's just going to be at the end of the ice hockey season when they're playing for the Stanley Cup, and just at the end, I think, of the basketball as well. So just having the conference about 2 weeks earlier means that there's going to be plenty of live sport to watch out there at that time. So that's
And then also the
great.
Football World Cup at the same time.
Yeah, as I was going to say as well. So the Football World Cup will be on at the same time, so that'll be really interesting as well. So nice time of year. San Diego's a lovely city. A little bit far away, so we'll have to do a wee bit of planning to get there, but it'll be a great trip if we can make it work.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we wish Mike all the very best, and thanks everybody for listening. And Mike, and not Mike, and John, I'll chat to you soon, my man.
Chat to you soon. Good to catch up. Chat soon.
Cheers.